Welcome back. This is Adrian Correa with Pulaski Technical College in North Little Rock, Arkansas, and we're going over the Quality Control Inspector's curriculum, the class, and this last section here is called Report Writing. What I hope you're going to take away from this class is the reason. Why do we have reports? What's the purpose of these reports? What kind of information? I'd hope you'd be able to discuss what kind of information to include in specific reports. Also, to be able to identify, tell me, I'm going to give you some tips on writing clear, concise, and useful reports. I would hope that you'd be able to relate some of that back to me. And then recognize and address patterns and trends. Patterns and trends are patterns of behavior or trends of quality or the lack thereof out in the field that you may notice, and hopefully you'd be able to recognize those, and I'm going to talk to you about how you might address those. And then also, and this is probably the most important part, is to address or to be able to explain how the tone of a report can affect the people that you're writing about. So let's get started here. So we have three basic types of reports that we're going to be doing. As either as monitors or inspectors. There are three types within the Weatherization Assistance Program. We have auditing, monitoring, and inspection reports. And auditing reports are those that are created by the auditor. Monitoring reports are looking at the various agencies, and then inspection reports are within the agency looking at their own work. The purpose of these is to make sure that everything that is being done under the program is efficient and effective, that money is and time are being used wisely. So when we look at a particular job or a particular agency, then we want to make sure that the measures that we're going to implement are done correctly. Okay, did we call for the right thing? Did we do the right thing? And was it done properly? And along with that goes, did we spend our funds wisely? As a program, that's one of the overriding goals that we have, is to not just bring energy efficiency to low-income households that qualify, but that we do this in a way that is not haphazard and doesn't waste money. The other thing that a report does, all of these reports, is verify that we have some program oversight, that the program itself, whoever's getting the money, is looking over their program, watching over it, and filing reports that can be looked at and audited to show what their opinion of the work is. So if there's training to be done at the agency level or from the DOE to the state, then this is what's going to show it up. This is what's going to flesh that need out. The other thing is these are very good tools for recognizing and justifying technical and training assistance monies and efforts when they're needed and where they're needed. So as you identify trends and patterns, these trends and patterns then turn into requests for training and technical assistance. Lastly, reports, the data in them can be used to turn into a national report and a national evaluation to see how the overall program is doing. So we have inspection reports as a requirement of our WAP, and I would recommend that any program that is considering doing energy efficiency work on a home have some kind of quality control inspection, and that those inspectors are required to report on their findings in probably in this fashion, because it's very clear and concise, the one that I'm about to describe to you. The other thing is that inspection reports document the things that were both allowed to be done and that were appropriate. So just because we may install attic insulation under the program rules doesn't mean that this particular home required attic insulation. So we want it to be not only allowable but appropriate. And then also to confirm that work was completed because it was recommended on an audit or a priority list, not just, again, that we don't install attic insulation because it's allowed to be installed, but because it's required or it was called for in an audit. So the inspection reports should document what the post-weatherization test results were, and this is specifically things like diagnostic test results, pressure pen readings, zonal readings, infiltration readings, We also want to make sure that the billing from the invoices are correct from our contractors or from our material suppliers, and that everything that we have a bill for actually went into the home. So as we go around and we're looking at sheetrock repair and we have 2 pieces of sheetrock, we want to see that we really needed 2 pieces of sheetrock on this job and not just 1 for some reason. Then we want to make sure that the workmanship that installed or of the installed product or the finished assembly is good. We want to make sure that the sheetrock repairs were done in a good fashion. So is it acceptable or is it not? That's what this inspection report should say. The work was completed, it's acceptable. We want to identify poor workmanship. If we see that the sheetrock was not installed properly, maybe the wrong material was used, spray foam was used between the joints, then we would want to call that out, okay? And we want to maintain a track record or be able to track callbacks and re-inspections as required, because that says that we're having issues. We're having problems with a particular contractor or crew or a particular job, and that might lead to a training request. The inspection report should finally lead any deficiencies to a corrected state. In other words, if we have poor workmanship on the sheetrock, then the inspection reports should point that out, request a callback or a rework to the point where we now have acceptable quality work that we can now file a final inspection report and request that the unit be paid as a completed project. Okay, so when we're writing a report, we should indicate if measures were installed as required and if any rework is required as part of our format. We generally, the overall report should follow a generic format that may be established either by the agency or the state. I would recommend adopting one at the program level. That way everybody is singing to the same sheet of music, as it were, and it makes reading these reports much easier and documenting data from it much easier, gathering data. Inspectors would basically fill in information on the inspection form, and there's generally you wouldn't have a large amount of text on there to go through. Okay. Some tips for inspection reports. First of all, review the audit report. Look over the audit report and address any special issues the auditor mentions. If the auditor says that the installers are going to have some challenges trying to get wall insulation in a particular wall, then that should be pointed out, and that's something that we should take a look at and address. Did they have that trouble or did they not? Did it require additional funding to do, or was it something that we were not able to do? And if not, then we need to document why we were not able. We want to be as thorough as possible. We want to use complete sentences. Unlike my PowerPoint slides, they generally do not use complete sentences, but in a report fashion we do. We want to detail why any measures that the auditor may have recommended were not completed. So if we have wall insulation that couldn't be installed, then we want to explain why the wall insulation couldn't be installed. Maybe we had too many blockages that, or too complicated a wall, or it just wasn't cost effective. By the time we looked at it, we could not figure out a way that was acceptable to the client and to the agency cost-wise to be able to insulate that wall. We just could no longer get an SIR on it. And then we want to note the quality of workmanship. Again, these reports should talk about workmanship. Issues related to particular measures should be noted individually. So if we had sheetrock issues, then we don't want to just say we had poor workmanship on the job. We want to point out specifically that we had sheetrock issues. Was it the installation? Did they not get it level with the wall around it? Or was it the taping and the mudding portion of it? Was there a bad job done there, or did they use the wrong material? And then last of all, we want to use good penmanship, because other people are going to read this report. You may not work in the same program. You may not be asked to re-inspect the same home. just for oversight purposes. You may only be asked to visit a home once, and then another inspector will go out and look at it, et cetera, until they get the job done. So let's take a look here. Here we're seeing a pattern of crews not paying attention to the venting on dryers when they push it back to the wall. And when we discuss the issue, this is an overall problem. Okay, so we're seeing a pattern with these particular crews or contractors. However, when we discuss the individual problems, we need to use terms like a minor kink, a severe kink, or a hole. A minor kink is going to partially block exhaust. A severe kink is probably going to block exhaust. And then a hole is going to allow exhaust from the dryer to come back into the home, which becomes an indoor air quality issue. But the overall pattern we're seeing is we're not paying enough attention to the dryer venting when we're pushing the dryer back into place. And then a trend is when we have an overall trend of disrespecting property by a crew or a contractor. And here we're seeing a hole in the door skin that was not there when the auditor came out, nor was it there when the crews arrived. In photo 2, we see a door that was abandoned. This is a used material or a recovered material, is something that's taken off the house that we replaced and should have been taken with the crew when they left for disposal. Photo 3 shows trash on the job site. Okay, and photo 4 is a situation where we've got a problem with what happened. The steel insulated door with the window comes up at about an R2 overall when you run the door as an assembly and the window as an assembly. We are getting to an R2. However, what it replaced was a wooden door with a storm, which was also about an R2. So there was no additional justification as to why the door was replaced. So here we have work taking place that does not need to take place. I don't know whether it was an audit, okay? The door replacements can be requested by different auditors because they don't understand what the conditions are in which they should replace a door. They're calling for it, and maybe the audit is not allowing it, and maybe they're fudging it through. Maybe they're manipulating numbers to get it through. If the inspector takes these types of photos and uses them to document criticisms of what's going on, then these criticisms become constructive, and especially when they're presented in a positive light, that better care, more care needs to be taken. We need to protect clients' belongings better, and we need to dispose of our removed materials and our trash that we generate on the job. Okay, so let's take a look. When we have the tone of a report, normally if you were in class with me, we would pass these pictures out, and I would have you work in teams to try and criticize each one of these. I'm going to go through them with you, and we're going to discuss tone. So let's take a look at these pictures one at a time. So here in photo 1, what we're seeing is the crew installed a molding and a weather strip around the hatch opening. So the molding itself is new, and then weather stripping underneath the hatch is new. You may be able to see a little bit of it over here. Here in photo 2, what we're seeing is a homemade, a repurposed cabinet door that the client had put up as an attic hatch, and it's being held by a turn button, and that turn button is kind of hard. It looks like a stick with a screw in it. Hard to see. So the crew installed a weather strip and insulated the upper side of the hatch, and the hatch itself is a cabinet door applied to the inside with hinges on it. So when it opens to the inside of the house instead of pushing up into the attic. Here in photo 3, the crew built a hatch from scratch using moldings that was supplied by the client in order to match the other trim in that hallway. Here in photo 4, the crew installed a weather strip around the existing hatch. Now, here's the kicker. 3 of these pictures are good. In other words, 3 of these pictures would fail an inspection and have rework required or a callback required, whatever the proper term is. And the 4th one passes, okay? And normally I would ask you folks to sit down, take a look at these, and decide amongst yourselves which ones are good and which ones are bad. Well, I'm going to go through that with you. I'm not going to keep you in suspense. So here we go. First of all, photo 1, this fails. If you look carefully in this area, what you will see is that the attic hatch itself is warped. The hatch should have been replaced. There is no positive catch for it to close hard up against the weather stripping and ensure a seal. It's not air sealing, so we've completely failed in the task of air sealing. All right, so work was performed. It's not to standards. Okay, additional work is required. Replace attic hatch with one that will seal against the weather stripping properly, ensuring an air seal, and add mechanical fasteners to hold it in place. Usually with an attic hatch, it's not enough that it just sits there, because as you open and close doors, it can move and wobble a little bit, and especially if it's tight in the opening, it can become wedged, or if it's too loose in the opening, it may become misaligned. That's why I recommend mechanical fasteners to hold it in place. In photo 2, this would fail also. This is a recycled cabinet door, but we have a ragged hole, and it's not properly weather stripped or air sealed as a result. The weather stripping is just not working because the door itself, the hatch itself, is not rigid enough to come up against it, and we only have one fastener here trying to hold it. So we've got we have broken plaster around the hole, which is not clearly shown, but right over in here you can kind of see it. We've got some broken plaster. Oops. Sorry about that. Hit the wrong button. Okay. So here in photo 3, the client supplied some molding, but this is going to fail also. It looks like the folks have done a real good job of trying to insulate here or air seal here, but what about in these corners? These miter corners are not air sealed well. I don't see evidence of this being caulked into place. In fact, when you look over here, it looks like we've got dirt either from air passage back into the house or possibly broken or cracked sealing material. So we're not effective. We don't have an effective air seal. And I guess you've guessed it by now. Photo 4 is the winner. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. We've got an attic hatch that is going up against the weather stripping. It's not the prettiest thing in town, but it's effective. It's doing what it was designed to do, which is seal the air coming in from the attic to the house or vice versa. So when we write our report, the first thing we want to do is look over our site visit report. What did we find? We're going to find things like we just found. So we might put down attic hatch and then come back and flesh out their report that says, okay, we're finding an attic hatch that is not, the work was performed, but it's not acceptable. It's not to standards, and the reason is it doesn't air seal. Okay, and then summarize the important points. So anything that were disallowances as far as quality of work or material would need to be summarized. And then suggest training opportunities. If all of this work was done by a crew, then we need to find out why 1 out of 4 are passing, and if this were a trend with an agency or a trend statewide, we would need to probably suggest that attic hatches be readdressed in the training. Okay. Now, if we have good or exceptional work, then we would also want to point that out. If we had some sheetrock work that was done that within the standards of quality, wasn't, didn't take too much time, didn't cost too much, but they did a really good job with it. It seemed particularly challenging, and the crew did a bang-up job. Then we need to say that as well, okay? That the quality of workmanship is exceptional and should be praised. And then the other thing that you want to do is file all of your field notes, your drafts, your pictures, etc., with this report so they're available later, okay? All right, here in this second exercise, we're going to do basically the same thing. You're going to tell me whether this passes or fails. So let's take a look here at photo 1. This time I'm not going to describe the work to you. I'm going to just describe what the issues are. In all 3 of them, we're covering attic or whole house attic fans. So in this first photo, we have tape and plastic. This is unacceptable. Tape and plastic are generally, unless we're talking about a ground moisture barrier where it won't be disturbed, for the most part, are considered temporary things. So here we're taping over an attic fan in order to try and do air sealing with it. But this doesn't meet standards for air sealing. I don't think either of the materials are acceptable according to Appendix A, but we know that tape is a one-time use thing, so from a seasonal opportunity to install and replace this doesn't work. From an SIR of life, when we look over the life of the measure, this is temporary. So what did they put down for the life of the measure? I would question that. We have basically the same problem in photo 2. This is a piece of foam board that is put up with adhesive backed aluminum tape, is what it appears to be. So again, we don't have a reusability here. The client can't remove this and reinstall it. And in the first 2 photos, what does the client think of this work? If I were the client, I wouldn't think much of this at all. This is something my cousin-in-law could have done for a cold beer and a leave early. If I asked him to leave early, I'll give him a cold beer and let him do that. It's just not good work. It doesn't look good. Now in photo 3, we have a commercially available piece here. This is kind of like a very rigid piece of Reflectex, but it has a commercial grade of adhesive on some Velcro strips that are put on. And this is a more permanent thing, okay? We'll have a little bit more life here. My only question is it correct for the home? And did the homeowner accept it, or the client accept that as being, did they buy off on the work? This may not be something that's acceptable to every home. However, in this case, we're going to assume that the client was just thrilled with it because that thing was drafty, and now they can take it down and put it up every year as they need to, okay? So when we're looking at our audit reports, what are we looking for from those? As an inspector, what do we need from them? Well, first of all, they should document the findings of the auditor during the initial visit. So we want things like diagnostic test numbers, we want types of insulation, wall thicknesses, call out for windows, etc. We want to know what they found, okay? And then we talked about test results, so we're also looking for things like ambient CO levels, etc. And then what were the recommended measures? What did they find that needed to be done that the audit software or the priority list is calling out, and what are they recommending as a result of their audit? And then we're also looking for them to explain either difficult or unique situations. We may have a type of window that's going to have to be addressed differently if it needs to be replaced, or a storm window that needs to be installed with a little bit of extra material in order to get it to come up to the siding properly. The siding on the outside may be a little bit different. And here's an example of an audit report. Now this is one out of NEAT, which a lot of agencies use, but it pretty much follows a predetermined format. Auditors are going into the software and filling in information, and then the software is outputting it in a fairly concise manner. It's only giving the information needed. It's not giving a lot of extra information, so there's not a lot. It's not real wordy, not a lot of text. And the other thing is that this allows us to call out health and safety items, and it can ensure that our health and safety protocols are being followed by documenting that we've looked at them and we've made recommendations based on those. Now here what we would do is take a look at another exercise. I don't have the opportunity to give you the exercise, but what we're going to do here is just skip this portion of it. Okay, I think you're getting the idea of what we're looking for from reports. So let me just sum this section up. We have 3 types of reports in the WAP, and again we're using this program as an example because it has a long track record. It has some very stringent requirements for it, and it's a good program to base training for the quality control inspector on because it's very readily transferable. We're getting all of the elements that we need from this program So we'll use it as our base. But within this program, we're doing audit reports, we're doing monitoring reports, and we're doing inspection reports. And these are all to make sure that the WAP operates effectively and efficiently. Remember, those were the two keys we're looking for. Are we doing it quickly as we can, and are we doing it are we making a difference out there? And part of being quick is saving money as well. And then the reports provide a very good record of programmatic performance. So if we want to go look at 5 years in the past and compare it to what we're doing today, we can, because we can go back and pull these reports. Your reports generally on their layout should be organized chronologically so that they tell a story from beginning to end. They don't start in the middle, do a flashback and say, okay, this is what the auditor found, and then leap forward in time to say, okay, this is the end result. They really should say, here's a problem, here's what the crew did, and here's the final result of what happened. They should be chronological. The other thing is keep reports positive. We want to use some very upbeat language, okay? We want this language to specify things like this work was acceptable according to our standards. This work was unacceptable according to our standards. The work was not performed, or the work appears to be performed, but I could not access it to verify. Or the work does not appear to have been performed, and I cannot access it to verify. So when would you say, okay, the work doesn't appear to be done, but you couldn't get in there to see? Well, maybe they cut an attic access hatch in to install either an air barrier or insulation or do air sealing in a part of that attic, but instead of putting a hatch in, they've sheetrocked over the hole. Okay, so you can't get back into that part of the attic anymore. So that would, and then if you're not seeing materials that would explain that, yeah, they probably did the work back in there, because we've got bills for materials and they've listed the materials, or we've got empty containers if you're doing an in-process inspection. That would be a situation where you would not be able to verify. But again, you don't want to say, well, it doesn't look like they've done this, these folks are cheating here. What you want to say is, it doesn't appear they've done this, and there's nothing to support that they have. So I need some supporting information here, or we need some pictures, something. And then you want to praise good work. Again, this always makes a big difference. If you see good work in the field, point it out. The folks that work in the field don't get enough feedback on the quality of their work except from the clients. And to be honest with you, the clients don't pay them directly. The people that pay them, the people that have influence on their raises, the people that they work with and work around their peers, it's very nice to get praise, and they really appreciate it. I promise you they appreciate it. And then you want to summarize patterns and trends. If you're seeing that a particular crew is disrespecting properties on a regular basis, maybe they need a little lesson on how to be more respectful and what kinds of things are considered disrespectful. They may not realize what they're doing. If you're seeing that we're not doing very well as a program or as an agency on attic hatches, we want to point that out. We want to say we need to do something about this, and then we can recommend training. Now, when we recommend training, we want to do this by title and not by name. Okay, we don't want to point out and say John always does a bad job. We want to say that our retrofit installers don't seem to show good understanding of the purpose of the work that we do on attic hatches, which is to air seal. So we need to repoint that out. If we've got a defect, the crew leader may not be effectively communicating with their crew. We don't want to say John doesn't, he don't talk to his people. We want to say that we're seeing an opportunity here for better communication with the crew for improvement. And then the last part of it is keep good records. That's the whole point of these reports. Any of the supporting material that you use to come to draw a conclusion or to make a point in a report, you want to keep that information. All right, this is the last section within this QCI course. I hope I didn't bore you too much. I'll tell you, talking to a video camera is not fun. I prefer to be in front of folks, but I hope you got enough out of this. So we'll see you in the next course.